first meeting of the Oahu Real Property Tax Advisory Commission meeting of July 28, 2021 to order. Pursuant to the 21st proclamation issued by Governor David Ige on June 7, 2021, relating to the COVID-19 emergency, in order to allow public participation in a manner consistent with social distancing practices, the following procedures are in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will not be allowed into the meeting room, but may view the meeting on live broadcast via WebEx internet platform or via recording once available on the Commission's website. Remote testimony will be accepted on all items from persons registered to speak by video conference or by phone following open remarks and administrative announcements. If you'd like to be present, oral testimony if you would like to present oral testimony remotely, please register through the WebEx internet platform. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public on the Commission's website. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones for the duration of the meeting. Aloha and welcome, members, and I'm very thankful for all of you being willing to serve today. I know sometimes we all have busy schedules, and it's important that we all participate, and it's very, very important the job that you're about to do. And I'd like to thank you for your volunteer commitment to this process and your agreement to accept this role in the heart of public service. This Real Property Tax Advisory Commission has a significant kuleana. You're agreeing to closely review the city's current tax methodology and policies and ensure efficiency and equity in these systems. Careful recommendations to the council are extremely valuable, and even more so in the context of the current challenging climate we're in. COVID has exacerbated our island housing crisis. In the past year, we've seen the average home value surpass $1 million. Unemployment reach record highs. Residents have been displaced and priced out of their homes by mainland remote workers, and we have faced continuous funding challenges to develop sufficient affordable housing. All the while, COVID also required the city to ramp up emergency services to communities. The real property tax is the primary revenue source for the city. You might be surprised to know that Hawaii has the lowest effective property tax rates in the nation. Despite having the highest median home value, Hawaii still ranks 20th lowest for total annual property taxes paid. Even as our rates remain comparatively low, to try to protect our homeowners and residents on limited income, we've witnessed a growing equity gap between wealthy and working class residents, and the increasing prevalence of investment properties squeezing our renting population. Our last housing planning study noted a need for 22,168 additional units, with approximately half for below 80% AMI. As developers focus largely on high-end residences, what we do to address these disparities and return units to Oahu families. This is a good time to take a critical look at our property tax system, how we set our rates, how we define our classes, and even how we administrate our systems, so that they are more modern, digital, transparent, and flexible. Please don't feel constrained by the current system and former processes. Go out and look to other jurisdictions to see what is working and what is not working. Explore and workshop out of the box ideas. Look both at external structures and internal systems that impact families and drive policy. You've been tapped because a council member thought highly of your subject knowledge, your commitment to the community, and your ability to be fair and thoughtful. Please know that we as a body, are excited for your manao and your recommendations about how to deal with some of these challenges. We will take your ideas and recommendations seriously. The Real Property Tax Advisory Commission last convened in 2019, and a number of substantive recommendations regarding the city's real property tax ordinances were made. Finally, don't feel you have to wait until December. Yes, there is a final report we're anxious for, but if the body wants to pass out positions, and recommendations in waves, we will examine them as they come through. For example, if this body recommends a tax classification that does not currently exist, the sooner we receive this recommendation, the better, as we have to consider an ordinance well in advance of next year's tax rates being set for it to be implemented. So just a simple thank you, and we appreciate your slogging through the tremendous amount of information and data. We appreciate your time and expertise as volunteers, and while public service may often be thankless, we at the City Council deeply appreciate you all. At this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Say, the Chair of the City Budget Committee, to welcome you as well and provide some opening remarks. Councilmember Say.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair Waters. I too appreciate your personal time and dedication to an arduous task of reviewing our city's real property tax program. I believe all of you know the numbers, right? So if you guys know the numbers, how to figure out, make more money for the county. No, not once, but twice this fiscal year to ensure that our primary and major source of city revenues are based upon real property tax classes, exemptions, credits, and minimum property taxes that are fair. I recognize and appreciate the hard work done in 2019 by the Evaluation Committee. Its recommendations warrant a second look on behalf of all of you, as a reminder to keep this process transparent and clearly understandable to our community who pays these taxes. My concern, like I stated earlier, is providing sufficient resources for the taxpayer to understand, disagree, and appeal their assessment during a short window of opportunity. We are committed to equity and efficiency in determining valuations of fair market value to market data and costs approach. Revised Ordinance of Honolulu, Chapter 8, Article 7. But we also need to provide a property owner access to the information in a clear and understandable way. We need to demonstrate concretely what we mean by highest and best use of property classes, and that community tax benefits are needed at every property class. As to its tax exemptions for all of you, there are 30 of them listed in our fiscal year 2029. The City Council needs your twice-a-year review as to what impacts, good or bad, these exemptions have on our overall tax system. Are they equitable? Are they fair? Those are the questions that you'll be posed with. Again, I thank you for your public service and look forward to our healthy discussions on all of the above as you folks move forward. Thank you very much. And I think you folks, I truly believe you folks will do a damn good job. And what Chair Waters said is true. Any advice or any recommendations, amendments to the real property tax laws, if you get it done before October, November, please submit it. Because we have to prepare for the new fiscal year, but more importantly, is where the taxpayers are given the opportunity of filing their exemptions or their property tax classifications. Thank you very much, and aloha.
Thank you, Councilmember Say. Now for introductions. First, George White and Nelson Armitage from the Office of Council Services have been tasked to facilitate and assist the Commission with its important work. They are available and able to respond to many of the questions, comments, concerns, and requests you may have as you work together over the coming months. While they serve the Commission as a whole, they also serve at the direction of the Chair and the Council. I have appointed you to serve on this advisory commission on this basis of your knowledge and experience. This is a group of accomplished individuals with substantial expertise and diverse experiences relevant to the subject matter of this commission. We are confident that you will bring excellent and well-considered ideas and recommendations to this council's attention. At this time, I would like to learn and hear more in your own words about each of you as you introduce yourselves to your colleagues. Can each commissioner briefly introduce yourself and share your professional background and interest in serving in the commission? Shall we start with Tracy Bean? Aloha and welcome.
Hi, how are you? First of all, thank you so much for allowing us to participate in this. My parents were very involved politically, and they made sure that we understood the importance of community members serving in our government processes. So it's an honor and a privilege to be here. My name is Tracy Bean. I worked for Hawaiian Airlines for quite a number of years, and now I am a real estate agent under Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. So we definitely have an interest in what goes on here.
Aloha, Jack Legal.
Oh, yes, good afternoon. My name is Jack Legal. I'm a realtor and I have my own company, Legal Realty. I'm also the past president of the Honolulu Board of Realtors and the past president of the Hawaii Association of Realtors. And currently I am the chair of the Tax Appeal Board. So we hear a lot of appeals on the tax assessment, and which is good, you know, meaning that people are really paying attention to what they're being charged. So I'm really happy to, glad to participate and be a member of this commission. Thank you so much.
Thank you for serving. Robert Rocky Mould. Aloha.
Hello, thank you so much, Chair Waters and Councilmember Say. And yeah, I really look forward to serving on this committee. My name is, I go by Rocky Mould. Please call me Rocky. I am currently the executive director for the Hawaii Solar Energy Association. Prior to that, I worked at the city and county with the Resilience Office. And I actually helped, I worked on a few resilience actions in our resilience strategy that were involved in tax policy. So, and I have an economics background, and worked in the finance industry for years, so I have an interest in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and mahalo to you. And James Aki Peters. Aloha.
Thank you, Chair Waters and Council Member Say. I appreciate the appointment. I prefer to go by Aki, so James Rocky, you can call me Aki. I'm recently retired. I retired earlier this year, so I'm no longer working. But for the last 40 years, I was the Chief Financial Officer for Restaurant Suntory USA Inc. So that's about it.
Terrific. Thank you for serving. And Calvin Fu Pham. Aloha and welcome.
Aloha. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and the privilege to be here. My name is Calvin Fu Pham. I go by Fu, my middle name. My background professionally is in civil engineering. I am a transportation engineer. And outside of my paid work, I am the chair of Faith Action's Housing Now Coalition, which advocates for affordable housing for our local residents, especially those who are of the lower and moderate income levels. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and look forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Aloha and mahalo to you too as well. And Winston Wong. Aloha and welcome.
Aloha, council members. Thank you for the warm welcome, and to all the other commission members. My name is Winston Wong. I'm a practice attorney in downtown Honolulu. I work for Chun Kerr LLP, specializing in tax and real estate litigation. So I deal with a number of tax appeals and clients who are involved in that sort of matter. Aside from that, I also serve on the Tax Review Commission right now for the state, and I'm involved in that as well. So mahalo. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you and welcome. And remotely, we have Kenna Stromo Gibson. Aloha. Thank you for joining us.
Aloha, and thank you for allowing me to join remotely. I'm out here in Vermont, and my sister is about to give birth tomorrow, so I'm hoping to be there when it happens. So I am currently the Housing Policy Director for the Hawaii Budget and Policy Center. We do budget research, and I started out actually in this position doing a project for the Office of Planning on how infrastructure financing could support affordable housing. And then from there, I worked for UH Public Policy Center, did a couple more reports, and now I'm working on housing policy, which, as we all know, is very connected to property taxes. So I'm really excited about working with all of you.
Perfect. Aloha and welcome as well. Okay, each of the commissioners has received copies of the council's resolution 17-122 and 19-199, which reestablished the Oahu Real Property Tax Advisory Commission and outlined its responsibilities and scope in reviewing its city real property tax system, specifically to advise and assist the council. Quotes, the commission shall conduct a systematic review of the city's real property tax systems, valuation methodologies, classes, exemptions, credits, and minimum property tax, using such standards as equity and efficiency, unquote. The council's request for your review and advice on these matters is no small task, especially given the December 1st deadline for submitting written recommendations to the council. While this deadline is not proverbially set in stone, it is important that the council be able to receive and review the commission's recommendations well in advance of considering and approving the city's annual budget for the approximate fiscal year. As I mentioned earlier, please do not feel you have to wait for the December deadline. If you have recommendations beforehand and want to send them in advance, please do so. Also, commissioners in the past have consistently asked for additional time before the December 1st deadline. I will say now, especially since it's nearly August, that I will gladly extend the deadline into January if the need arises. However, I also plan to keep the commission constituted through the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2022, and encourage you to see this process not as one report and then pow, rather welcome your review and recommendations on the ongoing basis from now until the close of the appointment. Before continuing with the commission's business, we will now proceed to the remote testifiers. To those coming in remotely, please video conference from a quiet location and mute your own television. Also be sure that your microphone and camera are in working order. For those joining us by phone, we will identify you by your phone prefix. If technical issues arise, I will give you a few moments to try to resolve your minor connection issues. However, if this cannot be resolved, I will have to move on to the next testifier. When I call your name, please state your full name and the agenda item or items you're testifying on. Speakers are limited to 1 minute on each item. When your timer goes off, please conclude your remarks promptly. I will close testimony once all remote testifiers have testified. Okay, terrific. Looks like members, we have 2 folks who are going to testify remotely via video conference and 1 person by phone. The first person registered to testify is Jacob Taddy. Aloha, Mr. Taddy. Please proceed. I can see your name on the screen, Mr. Taddy, but we can't hear your voice. There you are. Aloha. Okay, we can see you now, but we can't hear your voice. 1 second. Okay, let's move on to Janelle Denny.
Registered as an observer.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe Jacob Taddy is an observer too. I just got a message, but we had 1 call-in testifier, Mr. Clerk. Okay, your attorney just handed me the name of the person who called in, and I'm not sure if it's an actual name or a business. Omni Morse. Omni Morse. M-O-R-S-E. O-M-N-I-M-O-R-S-E. So is there an Omni Morse on the line? Okay. 3 calls for Omni Morse. All right. There being no other testifiers, remote testimony is now closed. It is now time for the commission to elect its officers. If the commissioners would like an opportunity to briefly discuss this amongst themselves, we can take a short recess to allow it. You folks like a recess, or we can do it right on the record. I'll defer to you folks.
Or do we need to appoint or nominate, something like that, or?
Yes. Would you
I
like
guess
a brief recess?
I would like a brief recess if we could, just to
Okay,
get to know each other and see who's actually interested.
absolutely. Let's take a brief recess.
Yeah. So-
Okay, let's reconvene our meeting. I know there was an off-record discussion amongst members, but Kenneth Shama Gibson was not able to participate, so we're reconvening now so that we can have this open discussion. And Kenna, you can contribute and be part of the discussion in selecting your chair. Who'd like to
Thank you.
begin?
Commissioner Mold. Hi, Commissioner Stormo Gibson. How are you? We jointly have a question for you. Are you interested in the chair position?
Um, is this an arm wrestling match?
Well, so
I-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
if there's somebody else who is excited and particularly you know, wanting the position, I would support that. If that's not the case, I could do it.
So we had a discussion, and I indicated that I was interested in being chair, and Commissioner Wong indicated that he was interested in being vice chair. So that's
That sounds good to me. I concur with what you guys have discussed over there.
Okay, very well. Is there a nomination? Has to be one of you
Yes.
commissioners.
Okay. I move to nominate Commissioner Rocky Mold as the chair and Commissioner Winston Wong as vice chair.
Okay, Commissioner Bean has nominated Commissioner Mold as chair and Commissioner Wong as vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, now nominations are closed. By acclamation, Commissioner Mold is now your chair, elected chair for the 2021 Oahu Real Property Tax Commission. And Commissioner Wong is your vice chair for the 2021 Oahu Real Property Tax Commission. Congratulations. With that, I will now turn the gavel and the meeting over to you, Chair Mould. Mahalo nui loa and best of luck.
Thank you, Chair Waters.
So I think you come here and myself and Council Member Say are done and we'll let you do your work.
Thank you, Chair Towers and Council members. Saturday.
Thank you.
Alvin?
Thank you so much. Really.
Thanks, Sally.
Gaveling in real quick. We're going to take a quick recess. We'll be back 1 minute. We have an agenda here and would like to get to Deputy Steve Takara from Department of Budget and Fiscal Services from the City and County of Honolulu, who has a brief presentation for us. Are you ready to go? Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, commissioners and the appointed chair and vice chair. So I guess we'll just start with this presentation and then hopefully it'll spur some conversation. And I do need to recognize Chair Waters and Budget Chair Say for being here. Previous chairs and budget chairs may not have participated in that manner, so it just kind of reiterates the gravity in the role that you guys are in. And me, myself, on behalf of BFS, we appreciate your participation. Okay, so for the start of it, so this is just a quick overview. Provided a color to follow along. Presentation is. I'm sorry. Oh, so you printed it out? Oh, right on. Okay. Oh, so by the way, my title is actually administrator for the Real Property Assessment Division. So, but thanks for the promotion, Rocky.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's get started. So Chapter 8 in our ordinances is where we reside. So the legislative intent, the purpose of this chapter is to implement the authority granted to the City and County of Honolulu to assess, impose, and collect real property taxes based upon an amendment to the Constitution of the State of Hawaii. So back in the 70s, late 70s at CONCON, where it broke off the real property taxes, there was a state function back then, and it broke it off to the county level. So thus created the Real Property Assessment Division under Budget and Fiscal Services. So, another function of it, we assess all real property, all taxable real property within the City and County of Honolulu. The Treasury Division of BFS bills and collects the real property taxes along with other fees that that the city requires. Okay, again, as Council Chair and Budget Chair said, real property taxes are vital to the city operations. It is the primary source for general funds. So the GEO bond rating and whatnot, I'll get into that a little bit later. But for this particular fiscal year, so our tax year and fiscal year starts July 1st and ends June 30th. So 2021 to 2022, we have assessed values adjusted for exemptions and dedications. So reduced assessed values by 33.6 billion as far as assessment, and which decreases real property tax revenue by approximately 164 million. That's just the exemption portion. There's also a tax credit for lower income property owners. And a couple more slides will show you a little bit more, but basically 3,200 applicants or property owners were given the tax credit totaling a little over $5 million for this fiscal year. So the city again has a power and is obligated to levy ad valorem taxes without limitation as to the rate or amount on real property subject to taxation by the city for the payment of general obligation bonds and principals and interest. So the city's GEO bonds are rated high. So you can see big A, little A1 by Moody and double A plus by Finch, and that was just done, I guess, last week. Again, positive rating factors, expanding and stable real property tax base highly concentrated within residential primary homes, solid history of prudent fiscal management contributes to such a high rating. So this is basically the structure, right? So you have the assessed value, then you have the tax rate, right? And then you come up with the real taxes. This is our organizational chart of our division. So I'm the administrator, then we have an assistant administrator, then we have 4 branches below, so that operate a function of our division. So we have the assessment branches, is the appraisers. We have the tax map branch, which updates the maps, as well as the ownership records. Property technical deals with our websites, legislative, addressing legislation, darts, risers, or communications to our office from the public. And then our support services, our clerical staff that helps us a great deal processing all the exemptions, dedications, and communications with the public. Then this is our timeline. So again, we begin in July 1, the fiscal year starts, then your first half bill gets sent out right away. Then September 1st is the deadline for dedications. Dedications is like ag dedications, residence use dedications. And sorry, feel free to ask questions, and don't have to let me rip through. And if something comes up I kind of more of an informal person, so feel free to ask questions as we go along. And if it's coming down the pipe, I'll just say it's coming down the pipe. So, um, so September 1st is generally our dedication deadline. September 30th is our exemption deadline. Exemptions are home exemption, that's the biggest one. You have nonprofit. You have all these other, hearing impaired, sight impaired, veteran, disabled, those type of exemptions. That's the deadline.
Can I have a question? Just a clarification.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The dedication, is that for new development or something like that, infrastructure, or what is the
I'm sorry, say again?
filing for? Dedication filing.
Dedication is for like agricultural. So if you're going to dedicate your ag zone land to actually actively grow agricultural products, then you would have to submit your ag dedication. So you're dedicating it solely for ag purposes. And then there's another one. Another big one is residential use. So a lot more properties have mixed use properties where you have, you can have business, commercial, as well as residential. So on the get-go, the default is the highest and best use. So if you have a BMX property, we're gonna classify it as commercial because that's the highest use in our opinion. So if you want to dedicate it to residential use, you got to tell us. And by telling us by September 1st, you're committing to use that property for at least 5 years. And then you're going to be not only valued as residential, but taxed at the residential class rate, which is $350 compared to commercial, which is probably a higher value, as well as a higher tax rate, which right now is $12.40 per thousand of valuation. I'm sorry, Jack. So if did I run you over with that?
No. Thank you. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
just a quick reminder, please identify yourself
Okay,
before
yeah,
you speak. Thanks for the record.
Yeah, thank you. I was kind of like, I kind of
So
recognize the voice.
that was Commissioner Legal for the record.
Yeah, so again, as mind if I call you Jack?
Sure.
Yeah, so, well, Commissioner Legal. So anyway, so Jack has been with our board. So there's 3 boards that when a person appeals, that they're independent citizens of the county and they hear and adjudicate cases. And Jack is the chair in our Kapolei office. So thank you, Jack, for serving in that function as well.
I have a question. Back a couple slides. Our bond rating, do you know if there was a change in our bond rating recently and what maybe like the COVID pandemic has done to our bond rating? Has there been any kind of advisory or anything like that from the rating agencies that you know of?
No, that's kind of beyond my depth of knowledge, but it was just reissued. So basically the bond rating stayed the same as last year. If maybe, I think it might have, yeah, I think it stayed up, but I don't know the ratings, the big A, little a, and there's some plus and minuses and stuff. So my understanding is it's big, and I don't know, I can go back. I think it was issued, Director Kawano, BFS Director Kawano said it was updated 7/21. So what is today? 7/28? What is today? 29? I don't know. But he gave me that scoop this morning. So
Thank you.
yeah, it's
Sorry,
pretty.
that was Chair Mold.
I have a question. Going back, Commissioner Peters, going back to page 2, it says reduce assessed values by 33.6 billion for the fiscal year. I'm just curious, how does that happen? I'm under the impression that everybody's property value is going up, and what would cause a reduction of 33.6 billion?
Yeah. Okay, so the reduction is where you have a home exemption, right? So I'm just using this as an example. So let's say your house is valued at 800,000, and your age 60, less than 65. Okay, so right now the home exemption is worth $100,000 off of your total assessed value. So your assessed value is 800, your exemption is 100,000. then your net taxable is 700,000. That's what you get taxed on. So that 100,000 is reducing the assessed values is what I mean. Is that what you're asking?
I think Commissioner Peters, this is Commissioner Mold. Are you getting at what's the total value out there that?
Yeah,
I mean,
because those, that
property values of-
100,000 exemption was always there, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't cause a reduction, at least unless there's something I'm not aware of.
Or maybe we worded it improperly, but it reduces the net taxable, right? So you have your total value or your gross, and then you have your exemption, so your net. So I guess that's why we're saying it's reducing the net.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, so maybe we can change the wording, but yeah, that's very astute of that language. Yeah. And I think maybe halfway or maybe 3/4 the way, there's some more intense numbers you guys can look at as far as the actual numbers and the exemptions involved.
Would you happen to know what the actual total assessed values are going to be for this year versus, say, the prior fiscal year?
Yeah, it's actually on a slide, I think.
Okay.
Maybe I should I'll get to it. And
Okay,
then
all right.
let's catch up then.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
So where are we? So again, the timeline, it's printed there. I mean, this is where it's like, you guys can refer to it, but I'll just kind of elaborate and maybe kind of expand upon what is given to you guys. So, but the important dates is the September 1st and September 30th. And the odd thing is that it's for the following year. So when people get their bills and their notices, it's later on, and then they realize they forgot to file an exemption, they forgot to dedicate. And that, there's where there's concerns, and we try to address it. So we try to put things on the website, try to make public announcements and stuff. So again, we offer two websites. One we call more informational static, your property records. And then we also have a dynamic or more interactive where you can file an appeal online, you can file home exemption online. And this is it. Let me bring it up. So this is what I refer to as the interactive, where you can do stuff. Can you guys see that? Yeah, so you can click this and there's available forms, your exemption forms, dedication forms and whatnot. And then when it comes to the appeal period, December 15th to January 15th, you can click this file an appeal online, and you can register to receive your notices via email versus USPS mail. You can look at property records, and I'll show you another website. That's the second website. Then once you get your tax bill, right now, the tax bill went out last week. It's due August 20th, and you can pay your taxes by clicking this. And then going to, I forget whatever option there is, all that stuff, but you can change your mailing address, remove an exemption, and change your care of address. Then these two, we kind of put it on for more informational. So importance of reviewing your assessment notice. So we kind of say why it's important, the deadlines involved, and actually offer a sample notice and what to look for. So this is the important one where right here, most people want to see what the exemption, if they get granted an exemption, and down below, again, showing your property value, then the exemption amount, and then your net taxable. You have the previous year and then the current year. I mean, this sample is a couple years old, but I think you guys get the idea. And then again, this is the tax rates. And then we also stress for people to look at your property records online, which is the other website. So because your property records determine your assessment. So if you have a 5,000 square foot lot, but we have it at 8,000, then we got a problem, right? We're over assessing you. That's why it's important. We have your home at 2,500 square feet and your house is only 1,800 square feet. You got to let us know that kind of stuff. So having said that, this is where your property records would be. But if you click on this icon, this website will come up. And then you can click accept the statement and then put the tax key and or address and stuff. And I have this one. So you have all your information. Then you have your property description. And the other, some more histories and stuff. Okay, so that's our two websites. And another interesting thing, if you guys need to fall asleep at night, you can go to our reports page, state reports. Then you have all like from back to 1981. So each report, we're still working on 2021 numbers, but you have all this stuff. You have all these reports. So there's state reports of all 4 counties together in one report of the different tax rates. Then you have individual county level reports. Yeah, so this is what I showed you earlier on that property records. That's our static website, and then this is our online or interactive website. And again, Chair Waters mentioned about the resolution, why you guys here, so I kind of won't repeat that. And then our evaluation. So real property assessment, major real property tax responsibilities, right? Professional valuation and classification of all taxable real property within the city and county of Honolulu following IAAO standards. So that stands for International Association of Assessing Officers. So that's a global organization with kind of sets forth the standard of mass appraisal and how to, I guess, address, mass appraisal. So we also administer exemptions, dedication, and appeals, maintain ownership records and addresses, mailing addresses, site addresses, and then update tax maps and assign tax map keys as they're developed or created. Valuation. So again, it's kind of legal jargon, but basically this is saying is that we do everything, fair market value of all taxable property to be determined annually and assessed by market data and cost approaches to value using appropriate systematic methods suitable for mass valuation of real property for ad valorem taxation purposes. So selected and applied to obtain, as far as possible, uniform and equalized assessments throughout the county. So this just talks about fair market, just a summary of what I just mentioned. And the classification is basically the underlying factor is highest and best use. And then the tax rates for each class is there. So mass appraisal, systematic appraisal of groups or property as a given date using standard procedures of statistical testing, equitable and efficient appraisal. Again, we use the cost approach as well as the market approach. We don't use the income approach. It wasn't stated in the ordinance, but cost approach, method deriving the value of real property by estimating land value and adding the replacement cost new of improvements less all forms of depreciation. The cost approach assumes that a rational, informed buyer would not pay more for a property than the cost of constructing an acceptable, suitable with similar utility. And the market approach basically is comparable sales. So I believe this is where Aki, can I, Commissioner Aki, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Commissioner, so this is where I think you might have kind of alluded to. I don't know if it's too small. You guys can look in your folder, but so this is one of the probably our state reports that I referred to earlier. So on the left column or land use class, right, you have all the classifications. Then column 1 is how many parcels in each class. Then the gross valuation, and then the exemptions. Then you minus the exemptions from the gross to get the net. Then the appeal value, and then the number of appeals per class. and then the actual valuation for tax rate, because we got to hold 50% of the amount in dispute. So the ordinance is saying we're gonna win half, lose half. So 50% is kind of like the guideline. So 50% of that is held in litigated funds that cannot be used towards budgeting or balancing the budget. And then I'm sorry, getting back to the chart. So the next column is the rates, and then amounts raised by each class, if that makes sense. So if you look at the bottom, the totals, so considering all those factors, we're looking at a $1.379 billion revenue source for the city.
I have another question.
Sure.
Commissioner Peterson. On the residential A, what's T1 and T2? What does that mean?
Okay, yeah, so interesting. So the way residential A works is basically that classification is residential properties that do not have a home exemption. So in other words, if that's not your primary residence, one could think of it as an investment property. So you have a tenant in there. And if it exceeds $1 million in gross value, it'll be placed without there's other caveats, but basically if you don't have a home exemption and exceeds $1 million in valuation, then you place in a residential A. Okay, T1 or Tier 1, you're taxed at the 450. If you can see T1, so the first million, your taxes are $4,500. And then anything beyond that, so let's say you have a $1.5 million property, that $500,000 is taxed at the T2 rate. So again, just to kind of give you guys a bigger picture of the valuation. So you see the lion's share of residential, it's at 87%. And then you see all the other slivers that make up the total valuation of our assessments. And then this is a interesting one, is the actual taxes raised by each class. So in other words, residential being the lion's share of assessments, because their rate is lower, their residential and residential A combined is at 54%. And then there was a resolution back in 2007, I think, 2006. Or is it there? Yeah, 2007. You see the first line below the pie chart. Resolution 07-60 CD1 encourages the council to create an allocation of residential versus non-residential properties in the 55-45 manner in the bottom right-hand corner of the box. So the target is 55-45, but the actual for this current tax year is 54 and 40. I'm sorry, I cannot see that, but that just gives you the idea of how much the pie is as far as value, and then in relation to the taxes. Again, exemptions and dedications. There's all kinds of exemptions, like I said. So I think, I don't know, budget chair might have said there's 30 exemptions. I want to say 29, 30, thereabouts. I might have it in the slide. But again, there's approximately 156,000 exemptions. Actually, yeah, 156. And then dedications, I don't know how many dedications there are. But there's a difference between an exemption and dedication, right? So dedication is where you're dedicating, you're basically committing to that use and held to that. If you violate it or break that commitment, then there's rollback in taxes and value. So this is a summary of the tax benefit that we talked about earlier, with a number of exemptions. So again, there's a description of the types. and the counts, and then the exemption amount that's been granted, and then what the tax benefit to the property owner is. So you can look at that. And by the way, the last two columns are in thousands. So it's actually 33.5 billion and then 164 million.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
Oh, can you
Does
see
it-
this thing anyway? Can she see it?
I mean, not really, but I can hear you, and that's fine. But I know Maui has like a circuit breaker. Does Honolulu have a circuit breaker, which basically means for very low income people, if their tax goes above their income, then they get a lower tax amount. So like, if you have like $20,000 a year income and all of a sudden your property shoots up in value, it kind of helps catch those folks.
Yes, yes. I think it's the next couple slides, but we do have a circuit breaker where the income is
Okay.
at 60,000.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a good question. I think in the next 2 or 3 slides, we may have that.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay.
No, it shows that you guys are on the ball, right? So, right, tax credit program. So this is a circuit breaker program. So county credit, and then there's a cesspool septic tank replacement. It's kind of in a way good that it's been less and less this credit is going around. But this is what I think you're talking about. So it's 3% of your annual income is what you're gonna. So in other words, what the county is saying is that 60,000 or $1,800 is the max you should pay if you have an income at 60,000, or 3% of your total income should go to real property taxes. I'm not saying that's appropriate or right, but if you read it, basically that's what it's saying, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Due date again, September 30th, and applicable dates. So the differences between an exemption dedication versus taxes. So exemption and dedications is applicable before taxes, and then tax credits are after taxes are calculated. And again, this is just a formula of it. So you got the income times 3%. And then that's your, again, like I said, 60,000, 2%. I believe it's $1,800. I could be mistaken. I don't know. Rocky got his calculator out.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the most you're gonna pay. So anything beyond that is credited. And I think I said earlier, I think there's like 3,200 applicants that receiving tax credit, and the tax credit amount for those 3,200 is about 5 million, little over 5, like 5.02 or something like that. Okay, so wrapping up things. So this is where I think maybe Budget Chair Say may be interested in you guys' opinion. So the current legislation is Bill 31. It relates to residential A classification. Bill 20 CD1 again relating to residential A, and I'm sorry, George, right? I don't know if it's gonna be a subject item, they may need copies of the, yeah. I mean, not now, but, or I don't know if it's in the packet or whatever. Should they decide, or should Rocky and the other?
Yes, Administrator Takar, this is Commissioner George White. The
George.
intention is for, at the second meeting, the next agendized meeting, we will pull together, if there is any other matters other than the 3 you have listed, but any other bills, we will pull together and provide generalized briefing on those bills and bring them up to speed. We'll use your base, and then also if Chair Say has any other matters that he would ask the Chair of the Commission to have you all discuss. And we'll pull it together, and there's a tab in your binder for pending legislation. And in commissions past, there has been a request from the Chair of the Council and the Budget Chair to have you all take a stab at it, give your opinion, give your thoughts, give your review. But we will pull all that together, the full bill, as well as summaries and basic analysis for your review.
Thank you. So just to follow up on that idea and what I think council chair as well as budget chair, they mentioned our recall hearing is that they'll accept you guys' opinion before the deadline to submit the report. Okay, the reason why I say that is that Bill 20 is scheduled to be heard second reading August 11th. And I don't know if Council Chair Waters is going to put it on the agenda, but he may put it on the budget. So in other words, at second reading, we're halfway through the process already. So there's 3 readings, right? So if August 11th is second reading, they may want your opinion for the budget committee that occurs later in August. So I'm asking you, they may, or I'm informing you, they may want to have feedback from you guys.
Hi, this is Commissioner Mold. Is that budget committee meeting, do we know the day it is in August? That might affect our scheduling for our next meeting.
Cannot see it. Okay. I think it might be the 25th. It has committee on August 25th. So full council is the 11th, and then committee is usually Wednesdays. Budget committee is usually Wednesdays. So it may be the 25th. So I don't know if you guys been following the papers or the media. I'm just throwing that in. I mean, yeah, as a function as administrator, I take the stance that, yeah, we're trying to promote equity and provide the decision makers or council members that information we feel is necessary for them to make decisions, right? I'm not going to hold back information or data and anything like that, or even my opinion of as far as the administration, as far as my experiences as how things may flow, or past experiences with residential A in this case. Okay, so anyway, that's Bill 20. Thank you for hearing me. And I guess maybe the concern or expeditious timing of everything. So Bill 76, and this is where maybe Rocky might have an interest, because in your former life, and I thought I saw Josh back here too, Bill 76 of 2020 is actually an offshoot of 69, or Bill 69 in 2018, or yeah, 2019. Anyway, it's creating a vacant residential class. And we've had other inquiries as far as empty home. There's all kinds of different names, but I just kind of want to put that because there's still interest of creating such a class, and we can get into more detail what it is later on. But again, this is just for presentation purposes. And
this Bill 76 is basically to tax vacant properties, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Now, this is really kind of, we really have to work quickly on this one, because especially the requirements of residential A class is now past the first reading. Now it's going to go into second reading in August. Do we have time to even discuss and recommend something?
So when we discuss our scheduling for our next meeting, we might take that into consideration. Now, what I've learned is that if Bill 20 is scheduled for August 11th, then it will be heard August 25th. So we don't know for sure whether these bills are going to be scheduled to be heard. That's in the kuleana of Chair Waters at first, and Chair Say for the Budget Committee. If we have an opinion and want to do something, we should discuss that, and about when they should, if they should schedule that and when.
Yeah,
then that's something that's totally open for us to make a recommendation on if we want.
Mr. Chair, because I know that these bills are kind of a lot of discussions in this, residential A and also the vacant properties. So we really need to ask around, like people who are going to be affected by it. property managers or, you know, outside investors, things like that. And because I know there's a lot of discussion, especially on the vacant properties. That's why I think it was postponed, you know, because of that. So I think we really need to work fast on this and talk to people, get their opinions and about this Race A and also the vacant properties.
Thank you, Commissioner Legal. Appreciate that. We can take that up in discussion.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions for, thank you very much, Administrator Takara. That was enlightening and informing. Really appreciate it. And it's great to be working with you again, because I do remember our interactions
I look
back in
like-
the day when I was at the city. So.
I know, you look 5 years younger now, you're now with the city.
You're so relaxed now.
Because you're the solar, right, executive, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So look like you're on the roof installing some solar panels. Look like you got some sun, man.
Those are my guys, yeah. Yeah, so thank you for that, yeah. Look forward to working with you going forward on this.
Mr. Chair, I have George, I just have a clarification from you. I know I was listening to Chair Waters explaining our deadline. So we need to come up with a recommendation by December and late or June.
Could we table that question for a second? Does anyone have, and could we ask questions for Stephen Takara, because he has to leave. It's time.
No, I can hang out, but I kind of wanted to follow up, and sorry if I'm stepping your toes in this,
No,
is that, so typically, you know, Real Property offers this presentation and we kind of, you know, bring up maybe ideas to get you guys started, but that does not prohibit you guys from providing, I think, full, or, I'm sorry. Yeah, full, right? Commissioner, right? You know, if you're affordable housing person, you know, you can bring you guys' own stuff to the table as well, right? I think it's open, right? I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think if folks have issues or bills that they want to run by Administrator Takara right now with questions, please, the floor is yours for questions and or suggestions.
Commissioner Wong here. One question. On page 18 of the slideshow, I noted that the number of appeals is listed, and that's very helpful. I was wondering if there was a breakdown of the rationale or the reasoning for those appeals. For instance, do some of those include appeals for exemptions or dedications, and which ones are, you know, basically on the valuation of the property?
We don't have it broken down in that manner because oftentimes the appellant, maybe I should back up. Can I back up real quick? So there's 4 grounds to appeal, right? So Jack, am I putting you on the spot, right? So I won't put you on the spot, but anyway, if I can remember on top of my head without looking at anything, so right, so you can dispute your value, your land classification, and equity or inequity, or the uniformity, lack of uniformity.
The value
I think-
exceeds 10%.
Yeah, that's the first one, right? And then your classification.
Against the
I do have to look.
Against the
But anyway, there's
Constitution.
4 grounds, and one of them
Yeah.
is, you know, unconstitutional.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's those 4 grounds. So sorry, Commissioner Wong, is that oftentimes they choose more than one of the grounds. So you may, the most common one is value dispute. But classification, right, is kind of tagged along with a dedication. So if, let's say you want to do a residential use dedication in a mixed property, right? And then you're denied that dedication, then now you're disputing your classification, so to speak. Right, so, anyway. I'm sorry, to answer your question, we don't have that detailed information, sorry.
That's good. Thank you.
I have a question. This is Commissioner Pham. In regards to your department and administrative work that gets done, are there any things that outside of the bills that have been presented already that you are concerned about that would be within the scope of this commission? Things that, because I heard the word simplify, and the need to simplify some of the structures. Would those have any effect or be necessary to put in front of this commission?
I'm not sure if I fully understand your question. If there is a bill introduced or in the works, or
I would say if there is not a bill introduced, but there are issues administratively that are of concern with internal structures or things that would make things simpler for your department to operate,
Okay.
and you wish to put that forward as a bill or have a council member do that on your behalf.
That's very good. Yeah, so one in particular is timeshares. The previous one or two commissions, they supported the idea of promoting equity. So there's about 2,000 timeshare units that are classified as residential because they lack some of the amenities like the front desk and stuff like that. So we kind of felt like we should repeal that section and timeshare should fall into the hotel class. I think that's what you're referring to, right? So things that we feel would promote equity and stuff like that. So that's one of them. And another one is Bill 31. Bill 31 currently, we're asking to include preservation and country zone in the residential A criteria, because right now it's just residential zoning. So we're finding it that there's country zone properties that don't have a home exemption and exceeding $1 million. And we feel they should be subject to the residential A classification.
Would these be the so-called gentleman farms?
You could call it that, yeah.
May I ask a question regarding your last statement? This is Commissioner Bean. What was the reason for not including country zoned in it initially?
I don't know. I think it might have just been an oversight. I think they just primarily focus on residential zoning. I know they wanted to exclude the agricultural zoning. And I think preservation is kind of a hand in hand with ag. But I think from our experiences that they're allowing residential properties to be built on preservation land, with variances and whatnot. So in other words, they're benefiting, but escaping the residential A classification because of the underlying zoning. And the country zoning is, my little homework kind of tells me that country zoning was more of a transitional from ag to residential, but they would never fully transition to residential. So our default of country zoning is residential. But because their underlying zoning is country, they're not eligible under their current criteria or definition of residential A. So it might have been just an oversight, to be honest, and we've been trying to correct it since.
So that's Bill 31 that you have listed.
Correct.
Can I have a question for,
You can call me Steve, by the way. I don't know. I kind of.
Thank you, Administrator Takar. I'll call you Steve.
yeah, this is Commissioner Legal. You know what about TAT? I think, as I recall, the legislation has given the power to each county to collect tax, TAT tax. Will it have any impact on our revenue?
Yeah,
Have we worked out the system on how to do that, or?
Yeah, so again, that might be outside of my scope, outside of real property tax, but that does influence, right, the ripple effect. But I think there are measures being taken to address the absence of TAT moving forward, being that they're not giving each county what they used to give.
Is that good or bad? Which coming?
So it's I think the counties have the ability to
Yeah.
raise up to 3%. Is that the right
3%, I
number?
think, 3%, yeah.
And that's on tax revenue from hotels, right? From accommodation.
Yeah, TAT.
So I think that can be a part of our discussion when that's going to have an impact on revenues. So we need to sort of probably need to know what's going on there. Do more research on that for sure. I mean, I would recommend that we try to get as full a picture of our revenue sources and tax base as we can to inform our decision making.
And just to, again, maybe repeating, council have historically asked of your opinion on matters. That's kind of one of the first things they ask us or other council members, you know, what did the commission say about this initiative? What did it say about that bill? You know, so that this report is important to them. And we cite what you guys say, either in favor or in opposition of bills that even we support. You know, again, we're just providing facts and information to the decision makers.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions or issues that you would like to raise for discussion, for comment from Steve?
Just one more question, Steve. This is relating to the mass appraisal portions of the slides. And I noted in the review of the last commission's report, one of their concerns was the transparency in the valuation process. And has there been any attempt by the administration to address the public's concern or the commission's concerns on the mass valuation process?
Again, we try to educate people. It's kind of a complicated situation. I think the previous commission, I explained to them that our appraisers go to a two-year program to become permanent city employees, and they have to pass a number of series of classes, formerly classrooms, as well as the state certified residential as well as the certified general exams. So it's a 2-year process, minimum 2-year process. So having said that, again, you know, maybe Jack can speak as far as what he experienced in our board, but it's case by case, and we may have talked about it in previous commissions where, you know, generally speaking, it's mass appraisal and statistical testing and statistical application of numbers. When it comes to individual properties or an appeal or tax appeal court case, you know, one may be applicable to one property, may not be applicable to another property, is what I'm kind of holding back in reservations about. Is that a fair answer?
No, that's fair. Yeah.
So this Commissioner Mold, I have a question. I noticed in the last advisory committee, they brought up the subject of a tax on transient vacation units, a separate class being developed for transient vacation units. And I'll just note, I mean, there's an article today on, you know, related to this in the paper. I mean, this is kind of a big issue right now with folks here, you know, are we treating, you know, transient vacation units, you know, equitably and fairly for, you know, and is there a new way that we could go? And two commissions, you know, the last commission actually recommended a separate tax classification that was lower than hotel, but higher than the residential class. I was wondering if you all, if BFS had thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, this is getting into the meat and potatoes. So again, Commissioner Fu, this is one of the things that we tried last year, or one of the initiatives, right? So with the creation of I don't know if you guys are familiar with the NUC, non-conforming use certificates, where you can offer bed and breakfast as well as TVU transient. So they create a B&B class that doesn't have any parcels now. But I think Rocky, and sorry if I'm talking fast about this, but in the original draft of the bill, it had these new properties that already have a non-conforming use certificate to operate as a bed and breakfast as well as a transient vacation unit, to be placed in the B&B class, and then the TVUs be placed in the hotel class. as well as the other short-term rental properties to be filtered into appropriate classes. But these are now protected and they're going to remain in the residential class or the underlying zoning, which oftentimes is apartment or residential. So with that being said, they're still classed as residential, but enjoying the benefits of a short term, but not paying taxes. So we kind of felt that was inequitable for the tax base, but council passed it where their default is the underlying zoning. So that's one of them that we kind of felt that should be corrected, or should be, I shouldn't be corrected. A lot of people feel it is correct now, but I hand it to
But
you
the
guys.
net effect of that is that TVUs are taxed at the residential rate.
Correct. The ones existing in the non-conforming use certificates are being taxed at the residential rate because their online zoning is in most cases apartment, which we class apartment zoning or apartment buildings, apartment properties in the residential class.
So
I don't know if that makes sense.
I think that makes sense. So you're saying it's protected when you,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm so biased. I trying to be.
so, but we could, I mean, that could be changed in ordinance, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually I was speaking with DPP on this as well. So they're in agreement, right? Because now Bill 17 is another one that you guys may want to be interested in. But anyway, it's about the enforcement of monster homes and even the short-term rentals. So they expressed interest that, should these be in the proper classification, it may help them as far as enforcement. Because if they're paying the real property taxes they should, then by right, then they're filtered in the correct land use ordinances. So it's kind of hand in hand. But I'll keep my comments as unbiased as possible. But yeah, when I say protected, because actually I think they use that word protected, that these guys with the nukes are shielded or protected from subject to higher tax rate. Because we had testifiers say that, we've been doing this for generations and why now change it and, all this other stuff. But, is that fair to the other people of similar type utility properties being taxed at higher rates?
So, I mean, if there are technical things that we need to do to achieve the goals that we want to achieve, please let us know. Right? I mean, we have goals, and it's really important to have those goals, but sometimes the technicalities of how you achieve those goals are very important, and that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So
here.
Yeah, we actually have a draft already. So along with that draft, as far as the nukes being addressed, we also, because it's in the same section of ordinance, we also addressing what I mentioned earlier as far as the timeshares. But most of the timeshares are in the hotel class, except a few. When I say a few, 1,000, so a couple thousand. But again, thank you for the question, Commissioner Fu. That yeah, we do have other initiatives that we tried earlier, and again, I didn't bring it up because there was support from previous commissions and attempts in legislation as well.
Question, Commissioner Bean. Does this draft that you have now include bed and breakfasts within that? Like the difference, my understanding is the difference between a TVU and a bed and breakfast is that one is a standalone, no one's actually living there. They're using it completely for the purpose of short-term rentals versus the bed and breakfast where somebody is living on the residence, using it as a residential home, and then having part of the home being used for the purposes of short-term rentals. So in that case, does your draft also include the bed and breakfasts under that new structure?
Yeah, so right now, well, I think last year they created I just cut B&B class. So with the nukes, with the B&B nuke or non-conforming use certificate would be in our draft, they would have the new B&B holders be placed into the B&B class. Does that make sense?
Which is included with the TVU class, same tax structure?
No, no, no. Basically the preliminary talks were to have the TVUs into the hotel class, which is at 1390. I forget what the rate is. Might be in you guys' report, but I want to say 1390.
12.9.
And the bed and breakfast class is 650, 690. Forget what it was. Anyways, basically half. The B&B class was kind of half of the hotel rate. Did I get it right, Rocky?
Yes, you did.
Wow, okay. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty, yeah, you must be a realtor because that's the distinction between a B&B and a TVU. So they call it, the owner can be there or an agent, right? So, but the distinguishing, the difference is that somebody's there, living there versus a TVU is no one's there and you have full reign of the property, right?
I have a question. This is Commissioner Pham. I have a question about residential A because that's something that we're going to be looking at. With regards to properties that are valued over $1 million, that is residential A, is that correct? Okay. And a non-owner occupant. So let's say it's an apartment building and it's worth $13 million. That is under residential A or?
So this is, when I kind of described it, I described not the big boulders, but one of the caveats is right now it's currently maximum of 2 dwellings on the property. So you would exclude basically apartment buildings. Otherwise, apartment buildings would be housed in. Does that kind of answer your question? Because I kind of want to follow up on something else.
Yes. So then clarification that apartment building in this case would be classified under which?
Oh, residential.
Okay.
Residential. Yeah. Or what, if you have an apartment building with 2 units, then it's subject to residential A. But 3 or more, no. So what I wanted to follow up on, this is where Bill 20 comes into play. So Bill 20 is proposing to increase the threshold from $1 million to 1.3 million, and the 2 units to be 3 units. So having said that, more than half of the current parcel count in residential A will fall out of residential A because of that $300,000 increase, because most of the population resides in that, right? More than half is going to fall out. And about 140, 150 properties would be added because of the 3rd unit and exceeding the $1.3 million threshold. So you're losing just basically on the threshold increase. Okay, well, losing. And then you're increasing it a little bit because of the 3 units. Okay, you guys ready?
Do you have some kind of like an analysis of what the net effect of that would be?
Yeah.
Do you have the numbers on that?
This is pretty intense. So, okay, so we talk about revenue neutral, right? So if half of the properties are gone, the remaining property is going to have to basically cover for the lost value, right? So with that being said, that means higher rates. Okay, but I think the introducer of the bill, Councilmember Cordero, Vice Budget Chair Cordero, that's the intent, is that they want to provide tax relief to the lower spectrum of the property values and then tax the higher value, or those who the ability to pay comes into play more. So it's what we call progressive tax structure at that point.
So it's about setting the rate at the higher tier to cover the loss on the.
Yeah. So the last few days I'm trying to prepare for full council. And one of the questions that came up was, what are the tax rates like? Oh, I'm sorry. So in Bill 20, a third factor is one, raising the threshold, 2, 3 units. And then the third one is they're going to add a third tier. So I believe Commissioner Aki, right? Saying the $1 million lower and then above $1 million. So that's what we call two-tier, right? Now they want to add a third tier into the mix. So their proposal is 1.3 threshold and $5 million threshold for the next tier, and then anything exceeding 5 million. Okay, so again, like I said earlier, most of the properties reside in the lower million, $2 million. And then you have, our analysis shows that about 370 or so properties that exceed 5 million and above. So again, if the tax rates are higher, that 5 million and above is going to have to pay substantially more to replace the lost revenue on the bottom half. So something to consider.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the numbers on that and what that.
Yeah, so yeah, I think everybody, and I think too is that we're doing our analysis on historic data or the current data, but it's going to be applicable going forward, right? We don't know what values are going to be like for this upcoming December assessment. So with the values, and these brokers are doing such a good job in getting their clients such high sales prices, right? So, right. So, right. They're saying more values are going to be in the residential A, right? So we don't know what's going to happen, but we're basing it off historic to provide council an idea. And then once we certify values in late January, early February, then we can actually sit down and actual tax rate, tier 1 this, tier 2 this, and tier 3 that. But we're going to see, bottom line, we're going to see an increase in rates.
Okay, so the sequencing on that is you're going to look at what the new assessed values are, and then you're going to look at the rates to set afterwards.
This is Commissioner Pham. Clarification for Bill 20, if everything as it's currently standing were to pass, the ones that drop out of residential A would go to residential, and the ones that come in are coming from residential into residential A. No other classifications are affected.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So again, when we talk about unintended consequences, is that 140, 150 parcels that's going to be with the third unit is going to be placed in residential A, right? So now they went from a residential rate of 350 to whatever the new res A tax rates would be. So, hold on to your hats. And this is what I explained to them is that, because when residential A was established in 2013 and implemented in 2014, I don't know, Jack, I don't know if you were here or not, but it was pretty crazy, right? So, there's all kind of actions as far as I didn't know. I lived there for 20 years and I'm in Res A, file your home exemption, and of this 140, 150, how many are actually living there but never had their home exemption, right? So, so we're in discussion with council how to best address it, and there's growing pains. I use the actual phrase growing pains in this thing. Should it pass,
Okay, thanks. Any other issues you'd like to discuss?
I kind of gotta apologize. I mean, I feel like I'm just running things, and
would you come back for another? No. Will you come back? Maybe if we're biting off a little bit more on our first meeting than we thought, maybe we could table this and invite you back for.
I'll be here each time. I'll be here. I'll be off island starting Friday. I'll be gone for 2 weeks, but other than that, I'll be here, and I've been showing up all the other previous meetings, annually and monthly, whatever. However you guys want to do it. I mean, George would let me know, and I'll make it a point, with both chair, council chair as budget chair here, you're right. So I think the least I can do is be here.
Well, thank you. Any more questions?
Just for you, Mr. Chair, can we get a copy of Bill 31?
Sure, we'll get copies of the relevant bills out to everyone. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate your testimony today and your information.
Am I excused or?
You may go.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. So I think,
I'm sorry, I have a quick question. Now, let's say I run into Jack or any of the commissioners. I mean, can I just say I can't talk to them, or what's the deal with sunshine law or whatever? Or what?
I'll give this to Aide George White.
Aloha, Commissioners. I will be going over briefly some matters related to sunshine, but as to Administrator Takara's specific question, this body is not per se or legally considered a sunshine body. Now, the council has not admonished but advised you in the resolutions that authorize your presence that they want you to be transparent, to follow Sunshine's intent, and I will go through what that means. But you are not a sunshine body, but we encourage you to act as though you are a sunshine body. That said, should you have questions for Administrator Takara, I cannot speak for him. If he wants to reach out to individuals, he is more than welcome to. Now, as far as commission and me being a aide and liaison, you are always more than welcome to reach out to me, and I can be that liaison to the administration, to the council chair, even to the chair. But how Administrator Takara chooses to communicate with you all, it's completely his kuleana. He can decide who he wants to talk to, when he wants to talk, what he wants to talk about. But as far as the other way around, if the commission or a commissioner has questions, absent of personal relationship, I would encourage you all not to just find Administrator Takara's email and shoot him an email and expect a response. I would encourage you to use me as the conduit. That way it can be included within the commission's work or work corpus. Did that answer your question, Administrator Takara?
Thank you for that clarification.
And thank you for being here, and thank you for
I'll
everything.
Catch you guys later.
Thank you, Administrator Takara. Okay, would Commission Aide George White from the city's Office of Council Services please come forward and make his presentation? Mr. White was asked to provide some foundational information about our roles and responsibilities as a brief overview of some of the recent, as well as a brief overview of some of the recent history. Commission Aide George White.
Thank you again, Commissioners. My name is George White. I'm a staff attorney with the Office of Council Services. I'm going to keep this very brief because you all have had a very productive meeting thus far, but I would like to get you all back onto your business, and we have many more meetings ahead of us. What I think would be most effective at this point and juncture is to take your binder, looking at your binder. This will give us a pretty good walkthrough, and this is all subject to your all's decisions and how things flow. But as far as an initial setup, what we've done is put together a binder. You're welcome to leave them here. You're welcome to take them with you. If you have things you need, suggested changes, and we'll discuss pending legislation coming up. But let's just start agendas. Resolution 17-112 and 19-119 make clear that the council, in passing these resolutions, one, gave you a clear mandate to conduct the systematic review that we've discussed. It also makes clear that you are to provide a written recommendation to the council by December 1st of the year in which you are convened, and that you will dissolve on June 30th of the following year. That clause in Resolution 17-112 is not restrictive. It tells you you need to provide a report, And it also tells you you will not be dissolved until June 30th. What Council Chair Waters and I believe Budget Chair Say, as well as Administrator Takara emphasized, because that clause is not restrictive, yes, we do need a report. Council expects a report from you by December 1st. You want to give multiple reports? That's your prerogative. You want to give an interim report, whatever you want to title it? That's completely fine too. You want to give reports after December 1st? That's also fine. Chair Waters made clear that in past commissions that there have been requests from the commission chair and commission members for additional time. Chair Waters has indicated if that bridge is crossed, he is willing to give that time beyond that December 1st date. The resolution also makes clear you've selected a chair, what quorum constitutes, but I think as far as the sunshine issue, all meetings shall be held in City Hall or other public places, be noticed by the filing of an agenda with the city clerk at least 6 days in advance, be open to the public, and accept public testimony of all agenda items. Essentially, that's the council's way of saying, under law, you're not a sunshine body. Under law, you're not governed by the sunshine statutes, but the council's hope and instruction to you is to do your best to abide by that. What precisely does that mean? Essentially, that under the very last tab of your binder is a guide to the sunshine law, open meetings. That's probably a little bit more appropriate for bathroom reading or nighttime reading to put you to sleep, but it walks you through kind of the general premises of what sunshine is. Now, my job as an aide is to do my best to advise the chair, advise the members, what is the intent of sunshine. And our main focus is 6 days in advance for an agenda, public testimony. Things could change substantially if the mayor or the governor adjusts or rescinds his current suspension of certain laws related to these public meetings, because due to the pandemic, we have been able to conduct these meetings virtually and in person as well. So things can change and we will keep you updated. But right now, everything we've done so far is in light of sunshine. Now, you all have an ability to contact each other. Technically, sunshine does not allow serial communications, i.e. hypothetically, Vice Chair Wong were to communicate to Commissioner Pham, and Vice Chair Wong tells Commissioner Pham to tell Commissioner Peters or Commissioner Peters about what Vice Chair Wong and Commissioner Pham are talking about. Obviously, you can see how that works, right? It's a serial form of communication so that it gets down the road about how you're going to vote or what you're thinking or whatnot. Under the law, it's not going to be illegal, but all we can ask is that you observe the intent of sunshine. That applies to emails, texts, smoke signals, whatever you want to call it. Just do your best to maintain the conversations and business of this commission. Do your best to do it in public. Now, there is an exception. Again, technically, you guys aren't under sunshine, but we are operating as though we are. Past commissions, and we'll discuss this with the chair, and the chair will discuss it with you all, that the commission will break apart into multiple subcommittees to address certain specific issues. So in years past, those subcommittees have looked at and targeted certain areas that you guys are tasked with addressing. In many years past, it was rates and classifications and credits and exemptions. So a hui of a couple commissioners, not more than a quorum, so not more than 5 individuals, or no, 4 individuals can be in a subcommittee, and they can chit chat about rates and classifications without agendizing a meeting. The only thing we ask is that that group create some sort of a report for me to provide to the commission at the next meeting regarding what you all discussed. There's also, in years past, a third committee was created, which was for valuation. At any point, if that committee, subcommittee, has more than a quorum of members of the whole commission, it is advisable that we agendize. meaning 6 days posted notice. If we don't, if we just have 3 guys or 3 individuals, commissioners, you can meet, you can discuss according to whatever committees you all decide to come up with. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? We'll go into that more next meeting, but just to give you a heads up or an idea of how that process works. It's the equivalent of what I'm discussing with subcommittees is what is considered and called a PIG, a permitted interaction group under the Sunshine Law. So it's just essentially you guys can meet, chat, as long as at the next meeting you let us know that you met and you chatted and kind of what you chatted about. Okay, yes.
Does that include talking to a certain group, public people?
No, you are, especially because you guys are not bound by Sunshine and the council's mandate to you in resolution was very clear. We're not getting into the, you guys can go do your public, private lives, talk to who you want to. We don't get involved with that. But we would advise that you don't speak on behalf of the commission, as only the chair would technically be authorized to, and that authorization comes from you all to tell him that he can speak. But beyond that, you're just Jack Legal, and you also are a volunteer providing input and advice to the council through this advisory commission. I think that essentially touches upon the nuts and bolts of what the public access or the Sunshine statutes are. Returning to your binder, agendas are going to be posted 6 days in advance. I will be emailing you all a link to our commission website, which will have all of the materials that you have here, unless there's some form of confidentiality, which I don't believe anything we have so far is. And I don't anticipate that there would be unless Administrator Takara were to give us something that he does not want released publicly. But everything will be available online, the agendas, meeting materials, past reports. The website is up already, but as far as updating for this year's commission with these materials for today's meeting, the only thing up right now is today's agenda. Communications, that tab will be any form of communication, whether it be from the commission. We can draft letters to the chair of the council. We can draft letters to Mr. Administrator Takara. People draft letters and send information to you, whether Budget Chair Say or Council Chair Waters wants to send something to you and say, hey, look at this. That would be under communications. The first communication in your binder is just the announcement of you all as a commission with your resumes. It's a little rudimentary right now, but there's a manila separator. Included in communications are the 2 last commission reports, 2019 and 2017. I would encourage all commissioners to review those reports and not necessarily to mirror or mimic what has gone before, but to have an understanding of historical precedent and kind of what direction you as an individual commissioner or as a collective commission would like to head. Again, those are provided to you just for historical reference and knowledge of how things have proceeded. Presentations like today, Administrator Takara gave a very thorough presentation and has indicated his willingness to be present at our future meetings. Him and his division is a wealth of knowledge and information and are the individuals who administer the real property tax code as well with the Treasury. Testimony, there was no written testimony submitted today. This touches upon one aspect that I would like to plant and we'll discuss further with the chair. In years past, commissioners or the chair have extended invitations to individuals from the community, individuals from various industries to provide presentations or to provide testimony. That is more than welcome. They can always testify, but if you would like for specific individuals or specific entities to be on the agenda and provide a presentation, that should come from the chair or through the chair, meaning you can send me an email. You could always communicate directly with the chair, but if you have a suggestion, it is the chair's prerogative what makes it on the agenda. But if you have ideas of individuals who might provide information or knowledge for your all's benefit, then let us know. Committee work tab empty right now because you guys have not decided to make subcommittees. And at that point, should subcommittees be made, we would put reports or notes or whatnot from those committees there. These tabs are all not, set in stone. They can be done and changed. Pending legislation also, Administrator Takara referenced a few bills. I am confirming with Budget Chair Say's office as well as with our internal office. Office of Council Services provides the legislative attorneys and analysts to serve the 9 council members. Certain members are super smart and are tasked to the budget committee. So they run the budgets, they know everything, they understand all the budget bills. So I'm making sure I've got a complete list of bills for you all, and I will be digitizing them, providing them for you. And ideally, I'll give you a general summary so that you don't get lost in the Ramsaying, or so you can get an idea of what the bill does without having to read 40 pages. But that will be, with Chair's permission, something that I will submit to you all hopefully soon. And then last thing is ROH Chapter 8. I included a complete section of the real property tax code from the revised ordinances. It's lengthy, but it's a reference point. Certain things in Administrator Takara's presentation, he referenced from this code. There's also another manila divider. And after that manila divider, under the ROH tax code section, includes, I believe, 3 separate ordinances that have the force and effect of law, but have not been codified into our ordinance or into our revised ordinances. So the revised ordinances are the collection of laws, and then they eventually incorporate new bills. So there have been a few new bills since the last recodification of the ordinances, and those 3 bills are behind that manila tab with a summary and the bill itself. Obviously, we can walk you through as you guys dive deep into this. If you have questions, shoot me an email, and we'll do our best to address them. And then the last tab is the sunshine matters, which I believe we have discussed thoroughly. Are there any questions with regards to anything that I shared or mentioned? Yes.
Commissioner Pham. Regarding sunshine, that also applies to communications with council members. Is that correct? Or like the spirit of the law?
The council themselves are bound by sunshine. So they have to worry about their conduct towards you, but not necessarily the other way around. Meaning you can reach out to them, but my function to you all and to the chair is to be a liaison. I'm not playing favorites. I serve each of you. I serve the chair, but I am your conduit to the council. And if there are questions, feel free to give them to me and I'll make sure that they're addressed. If you have personal relationships with the council members, you chat with them however you feel appropriate. I can't advise you guys how to interact with the council members. The council members know how they are expected to interact in light of sunshine because they are bound by sunshine. Does that make sense?
Yes. So if it's pertaining to something that's not even with the commission, then that would be something for the council member to decide if a conversation is bound by sunshine or not.
Correct. You could discuss a measure or a bill pending with a council member. You can also discuss any matters of this advisory commission with them because it's their advisory commission. There should be no issue with you having a one-on-one conversation with them about that. Any other questions?
I have another question.
No, go for it.
Yeah. So in terms of, you mentioned private life, there's no effect, but my name has appeared on testimony on Bill 20 on behalf of the community-based organization that I represent. In the spirit of the law, is that something that would need to stop in order to?
No, you, the only thing, and again, one thing to make clear is that my function to this commission and to you all, I am not your legal advisor. I am an aide. I am an attorney, and I do advise the council members. But one suggestion would simply be to identify in future testimony that you are a member of the Real Property Tax Advisory Commission, but you are speaking in your personal capacity or your capacity as X, Y, or Z, but that you are not speaking on behalf of this commission.
Okay, thank you.
And that would pretty much resolve any concern. Okay. And I believe I will turn it back over to Chair Mold.
Thank you, George. Okay, with that, we move on to our next agenda item, which is schedules, scheduling our upcoming meetings. The floor is open for discussion on our next meeting date and time. Suggestions for tentatively setting future meeting dates and times for the next few months are also welcome. Please keep in mind that historically the Commission has met approximately 6 times prior to the submission of its report to the Council in the beginning of December. So with that, given the time is nigh for this, I'll open the floor for discussion. Do we want to set our next meeting date and then schedule, and so we have a time to look at our schedules and absorb it a little bit, and then schedule the remaining meetings? Or do we want to try to put the remaining meetings on our schedule now?
I would say we should just try to schedule a meeting now.
Okay.
And skip that extra step if it's okay with everybody else.
I will just say I might need to take my schedule isn't on my phone, so I may need to go confirm and verify that I have the times available. So subject to that, I'm willing to open it up for all the rest of our meetings. Does that work?
Sure, that works.
So what do we have? So there was discussion of potentially, so how many weeks do we have until December 1st? What is that? We're going to do look for something 3 weeks out and do every 3 weeks between now and December 1st. I think that math works. I think George already looked at that, I believe. Yes. Yeah. Is there sort of a standing time and day that works for everyone that we could just say is our every third Wednesday at a certain time, or every third Tuesday at a certain time?
I would say a standing meeting would be probably best for the purposes of planning.
Just having it on the schedule would help.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine like, I'm really good like Tuesday afternoon and Thursdays afternoon. Wednesday's kind of difficult for me.
For me, Thursdays are pretty bad. Tuesdays work better for me.
Yeah.
So I would vote for Tuesday afternoons.
Tuesday afternoon would be.
Partial to the same, Tuesday.
Tuesday's good.
Works.
Okay, subject to check, subject to final confirmation, but I think, I'm pretty sure that works for me. So let's say every third Tuesday, and our when is our next meeting?
Be tentatively scheduled for August 17th.
17?
Shall we say the next meeting on August 17th? Do you want to say?
That's.
We could do business hours or evenings.
Yeah, the only thing about Tuesday, that's the only Tuesday, 17, that I'm teaching a class from 9 to 12.
Okay, I would recommend that we have our meeting in the afternoon.
Yeah.
anyway. So
Afternoon
could
is
you make
okay.
an afternoon meeting
2
on the,
o'clock, 1 o'clock is okay, but I don't know if I'll have time to drive from Kapolei to here, you know. I'll be able to participate remotely, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's only 17 because I'm committed to teach a class on the 17th, August 17th.
do we want to say 2 p.m.? Would that work for folks? Or maybe 3 p.m.?
2 p.m. because you can participate remotely anyway, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
You know,
2 p.m. is fine with me too.
Okay, so, and I think we can revisit the next, and let's say 2 p.m. consistently,
yeah,
but in each meeting, we can revisit the next meeting's time, and if we have a conflict, we can adjust accordingly.
that's right.
Does that work?
At least for this one, yeah.
Okay. So our next meeting, do I have to move for this, or do we can just agree? Okay, then our next meeting will be Tuesday, August 17th, at 2 p.m. There being no further business today, is there a motion to adjourn from the floor?
I move.
Is there a second?
Second.
The meeting is adjourned.
7,
George,
Gavel up.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is that 2 p.m., right? You said 2 p.m., right?